Hey, it's Andy from A Fine Adventure. In this video, I'm going to provide you my recommended itinerary for the W Circuit in Torres del Paine National Park. I'm not going to lie, this is a logistically challenging hike to plan, but I'm going to help you plan your adventure by going over my recommended itinerary and a bunch of other tips I wish I had known before my trip. So here's a general overview of the W Circuit. The W Circuit is a 100-kilometer or about 62-mile through hike that covers the main highlights of the park, including Glacier Gray, the Val del Francis, and the Mirador de las Torres. It will take 4 to 5 days to complete. It is an extremely popular destination and requires significant planning ahead of time in order to reserve campsites. There's a lot of ways you can do the W, and depending on what campsite availability you get, you might have to modify this recommended itinerary a bit. As you go through the itinerary I suggest, I'll let you know what alternatives you may have to consider. Alright, day 1 of the W Circuit in Torres del Paine is getting from Puerto Natales to Refugio Gray. The first part of this day is getting to Torres del Paine and to the Pudeto Ferry terminal, which is essentially the trailhead for the W Circuit. Depending on whether you're taking a rental car or bus will make a big difference in the plan. Let's start for those of you driving a rental car. Puerto Natales is the ideal place to stay the night before you start the W. From Puerto Natales, you'll drive about 2 hours to Torres del Paine and first stop at the Laguna Armada Ranger Station to pay the entrance fee of about $30 per person. Then drive 5 minutes to the parking lot by Refugio Central. Next step is to take 2 buses to the Pudeto Ferry, each costing about $5 to $10. According to the latest schedule I looked at, the bus leaves Refugio Central at 8:15 in the morning and stops at the Laguna Armada Ranger Station. You'll transfer to a second bus to take you to the Pudeto Ferry. This likely means leaving Puerto Natales no later than 6 a.m. This is the current schedule as the time I'm making this video, but obviously it might change, so you should check with Fantasco Sur, the company that owns Refugio Central, for updated times for this bus. If you're taking the bus from Puerto Natales, it's way easier. You don't have to worry about parking and can just take the 7:30 bus straight from Puerto Natales to the Pudeto Ferry. Overall, a bus is going to be cheaper and easier, but the only drawback is if you want to go straight to El Calafate at the end of your trip from Torres del Paine, since there is no direct bus route connecting the two. You have to go out of your way taking a bus from Torres del Paine back south to Puerto Natales and then take another bus north to El Calafate. For many of you, this will still be the best option, but others will see the advantage of spending a little more to rent a car. So step 2, take the 11 a.m. ferry from Pudeto Ferry Terminal to Refugio Pan Grande. The ferry costs about $30 one way or $40 round trip, but if you follow my itinerary, you only need the one-way ticket. No reservations are required for the ferry and only cash is accepted on board. I'll leave a link to that schedule in case they change it in the video description. Note that the schedule is different depending on the time of year. This ferry will get you to Pan Grande by noon. From Pan Grande, you'll go on your first hike northwest along Lago Gray up to Refugio Gray. This is a beautiful hike with epic views of Glacier Gray. The hike takes around 4 to 5 hours, so you should get to the site well in time to enjoy Refugio Gray and a nice meal and drink. Day 2 of the W Circuit is going from Refugio Gray back down to Refugio Pan Grande. There's a couple of things that you can do in the morning of day 2. First option, which we didn't get to do but met people that did, is taking a kayaking tour of Lago Gray. There's a company called Bigfoot that leads 2.5-hour kayaking tours that cost around $100 per person. The people we met that did this really enjoyed it, so consider it if you can afford the price tag. Another option, which I did do, is take a morning hike north from Refugio Gray up to the John Gardner Bridge. It's about a 3-hour round trip hike and takes you to these 2 amazing suspension bridges with incredible views of Glacier Gray. After the bridge, eat lunch at Refugio Gray, then take the afternoon to hike back to Refugio Pan Grande. Another option that you may need to consider instead, in case you can't get a spot at Refugio Pan Grande, is to hike straight from Refugio Gray all the way to Camp-Italiano. This is definitely a doable 6 to 7 hour hike, but that means you will miss out on the John Gardner Bridge hike, which really was a highlight for me. Alright, day 3 is going from Refugio Pan Grande to Camp-Italiano with an amazing hike through the Val del Francis. From Refugio Pan Grande, it's about a 2.5 hour hike to Camp-Italiano. Set up camp, grab your day pack, and start the hike up the amazing Val del Francis. 60 minutes up and you'll reach the first great lookout point, the Mirador del Francis. Most people turn around here, but if you're in good hiking shape, continue another 90 minutes up to the beautiful Mirador Britannico. You'll hike along glaciers and rivers and these incredible mountains all around. When you've soaked in enough of the view, head back down to Camp-Italiano for the night. The whole day covers almost 19 kilometers and will take around 8 hours of hiking, so it's a long day. If you can't get into Camp-Italiano, Camp Francis and Los Cuernos are suitable alternatives, but that'll just add on more distance and aren't free. Day 4 of the W circuit is from Camp-Italiano to El Chileno. This day is pretty straightforward. It's about 15.5 kilometers total and will take around 7 hours. It's a really beautiful hike along Lago Nordenskjold. El Chileno is the best place to stay if you want to hike up to the Mirador de las Torres for sunrise the next day. The CONAF site, Camp Torres, is still closed, but it might open up in the future and then would be a better alternative. If you can't get into El Chileno, you could stay down at Refugio Central, but it makes the hike up to the Mirador for sunrise a lot harder. But we met people who did this, so it's totally possible. Alright, day 5 of the W circuit. So after hiking for 4 days, you've definitely saved the best for last. It'll take between 2 to 3 hours to hike up to the Mirador de las Torres from El Chileno. So depending on when the sun rises at the time of your trip, plan a nice and early wake up to get there in time. The Mirador is incredible. I'm sure you've seen amazing pictures of it because it is the icon of the region. Here are some tips for this early morning hike. First, take it nice and slow. I was in a rush to make it up to the top before the sun rose and was pretty much sprinting up this steep hill for the last 30 minutes. I was so drenched in sweat that by the time I got up there and stopped moving for a while, I was freezing. Second, pack a sleeping bag. I was so happy a guy that I met at El Chileno recommended this to me because it was so nice to have up there. You'll likely be up there for a bit of time waiting for the sun to fully rise, and it is not warm up there. After you've gotten all the pictures that you can take, hike back down to El Chileno, grab your gear, and begin the 2-hour hike down to the parking lot near Refugio Central. If you took the bus, there's an afternoon bus from Refugio Central to Laguna Armada where you should be able to hop on one of the buses back to Puerto Natales. So that's my itinerary for Torres del Paine. Like I said, you may have to make some adjustments based on availability of campsites, but this is my recommended itinerary if availability and pace isn't an issue for you. Another thing worth mentioning, you could shave a day off the W trek by skipping the night at Refugio Grande. Instead, just hike from Pan Grande about halfway to Refugio Grande until you get to the lookout of Glacier Grande. That's definitely the highlight of that stretch, so you could turn around then and just stay at Refugio Pan Grande on the first night. Then the next day you would hike the Val del Francis. If you're heading to Patagonia, please check out my guidebook, Trekking Patagonia, A Guide to Your Own Adventure, on Amazon. It's got all the advice you need to plan your own adventure to Patagonia. Thanks everyone for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. And please check out my website at afineadventure.com for all of my guides and articles. And if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing for all my latest content on my adventures around the world. See you on the trail.